James Chen stared at the strange blue-skinned aliens sitting across from him in his small security office. Their silver hair seemed to flow like water, even without wind, and their purple eyes glowed softly in the dim light. They were identical twins, and if it wasn't for their different colored robes, one sapphire, one emerald, he wouldn't have been able to tell them apart. "Mr. Chen," the one in sapphire spoke, her voice musical yet firm, "we have reviewed your military record. 15 years of Special Forces experience, multiple commendations for quick thinking under pressure, and an impressive track record in private security." Her sister in emerald nodded, adding, "This is exactly what we need. The protection of a warrior who understands both combat and discretion." James leaned back in his chair, studying the pair. The Vexteri had arrived on Earth just 3 years ago, establishing trade relations and cultural exchanges. They were peaceful but secretive about their society. And now, 2 of them were in his office, offering him a job. "You mentioned protection," James said carefully, "but not from what?" The twins exchanged glances. The one in sapphire, Zira, she had introduced herself, leaned forward. "We are merchants, dealing in rare minerals and advanced technology. Our position makes us targets." "Targets for whom?" James asked, his military instincts kicking in. "Those who would prefer humans and Vexteri remain separate," Kara, the one in emerald, explained. "We have received threats. 3 attempts have already been made." James's eyebrows rose. He hadn't heard about any attacks on Vexteri diplomats. They must have kept it quiet to avoid panic. "The pay is substantial," Zyra said, sliding a tablet across the desk. James picked it up, and his eyes widened at the number. It was enough to set him up for years. "There is one cultural requirement," Kyra added. "In our society, personal guards are not mere employees. They become family. You would live in our compound, share our meals, learn our ways." James frowned. Life in security isn't unusual, but family, that seems. "It is our way," Zyra stated firmly. "The contract includes a cultural adoption clause. Without total trust, protection cannot be complete." James looked at the contract displayed on the tablet. Most of it was standard security work, threat assessment, personal protection, security system management. But there were sections written in Vexteri script with English translations that talked about familial bonds and shared identity. "This is unusual," he said slowly. The twins smiled in perfect sync. "We are unusual people, Mr. Chen," they said together. Something in their purple eyes made him pause. There was more here than they were saying, but his instincts weren't warning him of danger, just importance. Whatever this was, it was bigger than a simple security contract. James had been looking for something different. After leaving the military, private security work had felt hollow. This was different. This was interesting. He pressed his thumb to the tablet scanner. "I accept." The twins' smiles widened, showing perfect white teeth. "Welcome to the family, James," Zyra said warmly. "Brother," Kyra added, her eyes twinkling. As they stood to leave, James couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just agreed to something much more complex than simple bodyguard work. But as he watched the twins glide out of his office, their silver hair shimmering under the fluorescent lights, he realized he was actually looking forward to finding out exactly what he'd gotten himself into. He had no idea that by the end of the week, his entire understanding of family, duty, and relationships would be completely transformed. James stood in the doorway of his new quarters within the Vexteri diplomatic compound, his single duffel bag hanging from his shoulder. The room was massive, with sweeping windows that showed the city skyline, but something seemed odd about the layout. "This can't be right," he muttered, staring at the enormous bed that dominated the center of the room. It was clearly designed for multiple people, with plush purple covers and what looked like 3 sets of pillows. "Is something wrong, brother?" Zyra's melodic voice came from behind him. He turned to find both twins watching him with identical expressions of concern. "I think there's been a mistake," James said carefully. This looks like someone's bedroom, not security quarters. The twins exchanged confused glances. This is your room, Kyra explained, her silver hair catching the sunlight. Our room. We are family now, remember? James felt his face heat up. Wait, what? We're supposed to share a room. Of course, Zyra said, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. How else can you protect us? In Vexteri culture, family units always share living space. It strengthens bonds and ensures safety. Before James could respond, alarms blared throughout the compound. His military training kicked in instantly. Get behind me, he ordered, drawing his sidearm. The twins moved with surprising grace, positioning themselves at his flanks instead of behind him. Each pulled out a slim silver rod that extended into what looked like energy staffs. We fight together, brother, Kyra said firmly. A group of masked figures burst through the window, sending glass flying everywhere. James counted 4 attackers, all wearing some kind of stealth suits. What happened next amazed him. The twins moved like water, their movements perfectly synchronized. Their energy staffs created patterns of light that deflected incoming projectiles. James provided covering fire, forcing 2 attackers to dive for cover. The blue one, Zyra shouted, his belt. James noticed a blinking device on one attacker's belt. Some kind of bomb. He didn't wait to find out. 3 precise shots disabled the device, causing the attacker's stealth suit to malfunction. The twins took advantage of the confusion, their staffs dancing in deadly arcs. Within moments, all 4 attackers were unconscious on the floor. Well, James said, breathing heavily. That was some welcoming party. He looked at the twins with new respect. You're not just merchants, are you? Zyra smiled mysteriously. We are many things, brother, just as you are now many things to us. Compound security finally arrived, taking the attackers into custody. As the excitement died down, James found himself back to the awkward bedroom situation. Look, he said, about the sleeping arrangements. You fought well. Kyra interrupted. Your skills complement ours perfectly. This is why family guards are so important in our culture. We trust each other completely. But on Earth, sharing a room like this, it's not. James struggled to explain. We understand human customs are different, Zyra said softly. But you signed the contract. You are Vexteri family now. This means accepting our ways, just as we accept yours. James looked at the twins, remembering how they'd fought together. They weren't helpless civilians needing protection. They were warriors themselves. This arrangement was about something deeper than just security. I'll need time to adjust, he said finally. The twins beamed at him. Of course, brother, they said in unison. We have all the time we need. As James began unpacking his bag, he couldn't help but smile. One thing was certain. Life was about to get very interesting. A week had passed since the attack, and James was starting to settle into a routine. He sat in the compound security room, monitoring the screens when something caught his eye. A diplomatic shuttle was approaching, bearing markings he'd never seen before. That's not a scheduled arrival, he muttered, reaching for his communicator. Before he could alert the twins, Zyra and Kyra burst into the room, their faces unusually pale. They found us, Kyra whispered, her purple eyes wide with worry. Who found you? James asked, standing up. And why are you both wearing ceremonial armor? The twins were dressed in gleaming silver battle suits, much more elaborate than their usual robes. Intricate patterns decorated their armor, and both wore delicate circlets on their heads. Zyra took a deep breath. James, there's something we need to tell you. We're not merchants. We're the crown princesses of the Vexteri High Court. James stared at them. You're princesses. In hiding. The ones arriving are the Shadowclaw faction. Kyra explained quickly. They staged a coup 6 months ago. Our parents. Her voice broke slightly. They were forced into exile. Zyra finished. We escaped to Earth, disguised as merchants. The Shadow Claw wants to stop all relations with humans. They'll kill us to make sure the throne stays empty. Alarms began blaring again. The security screen showed multiple breaches at the compound's perimeter. James quickly assessed the situation. "How many guards can we count on?" he asked, switching to tactical mode. "Only you," Zyra said grimly. "The compound staff are loyal to the current regime. We suspected there might be spies, which is why we needed someone from Earth." James nodded, his military training kicking in. "That's why you needed family bonds. You needed someone who couldn't be bought or threatened." "Yes," the twins said together. "We trust you completely." Moving quickly, James activated his backup security protocols. "I installed some surprises last week, but we need to move. This room will be their first target." They hurried through the compound's corridors. James's hidden defenses activated, filling several sections with smoke and triggering electromagnetic pulses that disabled the attackers' equipment. "Your Earth technology," Kyra said admiringly as they ran. "They won't expect it." They reached the underground garage where James had prepared an escape vehicle. But before they could reach it, a deep voice echoed through the space. "Little princesses," the voice mocked. "Running away again." A tall Vexteri male stepped out of the shadows, wearing black armor covered in glowing red symbols. 6 armed guards flanked him. "Commander Vexthor," Zyra spat, still hiding behind her soldiers. James noticed how the twins had positioned themselves. Years of fighting together had made them perfectly coordinated. He adjusted his position to complete their formation. "A human," Vexthor laughed. "This is your great protector." James smiled coolly. "Actually, I'm family." What happened next was a blur of motion. The twins' energy staffs activated in perfect sync with James's first shots. They moved as one unit, each covering the other's blind spots. James's Earth combat style mixed surprisingly well with Vexteri techniques, catching their opponents off guard. In the heat of battle, James understood why the twins had insisted on such close bonds. Their fighting style required absolute trust and coordination. Being family wasn't just about protection. It was about becoming one seamless unit. When it was over, Vexthor and his men lay unconscious on the garage floor. James had a minor cut on his arm, which both twins fussed over immediately. "We need to leave," James said, helping them into the vehicle. "Where to?" The twins looked at each other, then at him. "We have a secret sanctuary," Zyra said. "But James, once we go there, there's no turning back. You'll be fully involved in our world." James started the engine. "I already am. You're my family now, remember." The twins smiled, their purple eyes glowing with affection and gratitude. As they sped away from the compound, James realized he meant every word. Princesses or not, these two had become his family, and he would protect them with his life. The sanctuary turned out to be a hidden estate in the mountains, shielded from detection by advanced Vexteri technology. After 3 days of settling in, James found himself in the training hall with the twins, learning their ways of combat. "No, brother," Kyra said patiently, adjusting his grip on the energy staff. "Feel the flow of energy. Don't fight it." Her hands lingered on his, guiding his movements. Zyra circled them, her silver hair tied back for training. "The staff is not a weapon," she explained. "It's an extension of your spirit, like the bonds between us." James tried again, letting the energy flow through the staff. This time, the purple light danced and swirled, creating patterns similar to the twins' fighting style. "Much better," both sisters said together, beaming at him. "Now," Zyra continued, "we teach you about Vexteri nobility. As our family guard, you are now considered noble by our laws." James wiped sweat from his brow. "I'm what?" "When we return to the High Court," Kyra explained, "you will need to understand our customs. The way you walk, speak, even eat, everything matters." For the next few hours, they taught him the intricate dance of Vexteri court politics. He learned that the twins' synchronized movements weren't just for show. In their culture, twins were considered blessed by the stars, their unity a symbol of perfect balance. And what about? James hesitated. Sleeping arrangements. In the court, I mean. The twins exchanged one of their knowing looks. Family units always stay together, Zyra said softly. It is a sign of trust and devotion. Even more so for royal guards, Kyra added. The closer the bonds, the stronger the protection. James felt his face warm. After 2 weeks of sharing their living space, he'd grown more comfortable with their cultural differences, but sometimes their casual intimacy still caught him off guard. Suddenly, the sanctuary's alarms blared, but this time, they were ready. 3 intruders, James announced, checking the security feeds he'd installed. They're using stealth tech, but my Earth sensors can detect them. The twins moved to his sides, their staffs ready. Remember your training, Zyra said. Flow with us. When the attackers burst in, James was ready. He moved in perfect sync with the twins, his staff creating patterns of light that merged with theirs. The intruders, clearly expecting separate fighters, were unprepared for their unified defense. Impossible, one attacker gasped as James's staff work complemented the twins' movements perfectly. A human can't master Vexteri combat so quickly. Family bonds, Kyra said proudly as they subdued the last attacker. After securing the prisoners for questioning, the twins pulled James into a tight embrace. You've learned so well, Zyra whispered. You truly are one of us now, Kyra added. James held them close, realizing how natural it felt now. I still have a lot to learn about your culture. The twins stepped back, their purple eyes glowing with something more than just pride. There is one more thing, Zyra said carefully. In our culture, Kyra continued, when a family guard reaches this level of harmony with their charges, they become more than just guards, Zyra finished. They become. Before she could finish, their security system detected another approaching threat. But this time, it wasn't attackers. A royal messenger, the twins said, looking at the screens. From our parents. James straightened up, automatically adjusting his posture as they'd taught him. Whatever message was coming, whatever the twins had been about to tell him, he knew their lives were about to become even more complicated. But looking at the 2 beautiful alien women who had become his family, he wouldn't have it any other way. The royal messenger knelt before the twins, her blue skin darker than theirs, marking her as being from the outer colonies. She held out a crystalline cube that glowed with swirling colors. Your Highnesses, she said, her voice trembling. A message from your parents. James moved to scan the cube with his Earth devices, but the twins stopped him. It's safe, Zyra assured him. Only royal blood can activate it. The twins touched the cube together. A hologram appeared, showing 2 older Vexteri in elaborate robes. The resemblance to Zura and Kira was striking. Our precious daughters, the queen spoke, her voice filled with worry. We have secured allies in the outer colonies, but the Shadow Claw grows stronger. They seek to force all aliens from our worlds. You must make a choice, the king continued. Earth's leaders have offered sanctuary, but at a price. They demand we share our stealth technology. James felt the twins tense beside him. Vexteri stealth tech was their most guarded secret. There is another way, the queen added. The ancient laws state that if royal twins take a single mate from another species, it creates an unbreakable alliance. James's heart skipped a beat. The twins had gone very still. We know you have chosen a human guardian, the king said. If he is willing. The message ended. The messenger bowed and quietly left the room. Silence filled the sanctuary. James's mind raced, remembering all the little moments. The shared living space, the lingering touches during training, the way they looked at him when they thought he wasn't watching. So, he said finally, this is what you were trying to tell me earlier. Yes, Zyra whispered. By mastering our combat arts, by truly becoming family. You qualified as a potential mate, Kyra finished. But we wanted it to be your choice, not political necessity. Before James could respond, his security system flashed a warning. Multiple vehicles were approaching the sanctuary. Earth military, he said, checking the cameras. How did they find us? The messenger, the twins said together, their eyes widening. We were too trusting. Soldiers began surrounding the building. A voice boomed through speakers. This is Earth Defense Force. Surrender the Vexteri technology, and the princesses will receive asylum. James felt sick. Some of those voices were familiar, his old military commanders. They want to use us, Zyra said bitterly. Force our people to share secrets. Or use our marriage law to claim our technology, Kyra added. Either way, our people lose their independence. James looked at the twins, these amazing women who had become his family, who had trusted him, taught him, and yes, he now realized, loved him. What do you want to do? He asked them. Not as princesses, not as part of some political game. What do you want? The twins moved closer to him, their purple eyes glowing with emotion. We want you, they said together. We have since we first met you, but we want you to choose freely. James pulled them both into his arms. I chose you the moment I signed that contract, he said softly. I just didn't know it then. The Earth soldiers were getting closer. James could hear their boots on the gravel outside. Then let's show them what a real family can do, Zyra said, her energy staff activating. Together, Kyra added, her staff humming to life. James activated his own staff, the purple energy swirling in perfect harmony with theirs. Whatever came next, they would face it as one. Not because of politics or laws or necessity, but because they had chosen each other. The doors burst open, and the real battle for their future began. Earth soldiers poured into the sanctuary, but something wasn't right. James noticed their movements were too stiff, too mechanical. The soldiers' eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, the same red that marked Shadowclaw technology. Mind control devices, Zyra gasped. Vexthor is controlling Earth's military. A cold laugh echoed through the room as Commander Vexthor stepped through the doorway, wearing his black armor with glowing red symbols. Clever human, he sneered. Yes, these are your former comrades. Amazing what our technology can do when properly misused. James's grip tightened on his energy staff. You're the one who's been pushing for war between Earth and the Vexteri. Of course, Vexthor spread his arms. How else could I convince our people to abandon all contact with humans? Once Earth's military attacks our princesses, the Vexteri will never trust humans again. The controlled soldiers raised their weapons. James stepped closer to the twins, their energy staffs forming a triangle of purple light. You didn't count on one thing, Kyra said, her voice strong and clear. The power of true family bonds. James felt energy flowing between them, stronger than ever before. Their staff's purple light began to pulse in perfect rhythm. Love, Vexthor laughed. That's your great weapon. How disappointingly human. No, Zyra smiled. Something far more powerful. Something you forgot from our oldest laws. The twins began moving in perfect sync, their movements matching James's as if they'd practiced for years. The purple energy from their staffs grew brighter, beginning to affect the mind control devices. When royal twins choose a mate, Kyra began, and that mate chooses them freely, Zyra continued. Their combined energy can break any dark technology, James finished, suddenly understanding the ancient knowledge they'd been teaching him. The purple light exploded outward in a gentle wave. The soldiers' red eyes flickered and returned to normal. They looked around in confusion, lowering their weapons. No, Vexthor screamed. He pulled out a black crystal. If I can't control them, I'll destroy them all. But before he could activate the crystal, James and the twins moved as one. Their combined staff strike knocked the crystal from his hand, and their synchronized follow-up took him down without hurting him. As Earth's soldiers recovered their senses, James's old commander stepped forward. Chen, What happened? Last thing I remember, we were in a meeting about Vex-Terry relations. Commander, James said respectfully, standing between the twins. I think it's time for both our peoples to learn the truth. Over the next hour, everything came to light. Vex-Thor had been manipulating both sides, using stolen technology to push Earth and the Vex-Terry toward war. The evidence was in his own crystal, which contained records of all his plans. So, the Earth commander said, looking at James and the twins, "You three are together. Is that even legal?" "By both Earth and Vex-Terry law," Zyra explained, taking James's hand. "When freely chosen," Kyra added, taking his other hand. "And it might just be what saves both our worlds," James finished. As the soldiers secured Vex-Thor and began coordinating with both governments, James turned to the twins. "I never thought signing that security contract would lead to this," he said softly. The twins smiled, their purple eyes glowing with love. "We did," they said together. But even as they shared this moment of victory, they knew bigger challenges lay ahead. They had to unite two worlds, restore the twins to their throne, and forge a path that had never existed before. Fortunately, they wouldn't have to do it alone. They had something stronger than any technology or political power. They had each other. The grand hall of the Vex-Terry High Court sparkled with crystalline light as James stood beside the twins, facing the gathered nobles. After exposing Vex-Thor's plot, they had returned to the twins' homeworld to confront the Shadowclaw faction directly. "The evidence is clear." Zyra's voice rang through the hall. "Vex-Thor manipulated both our peoples, seeking to start a war. And why should we believe a human?" A noble in black robes challenged, his face twisted with disgust. "Or princesses who abandoned their duties." "We did not abandon anything," Kyra stated firmly. "We sought to protect our people's future." James noticed movement in the shadows above. His training with the twins had sharpened his senses beyond normal human limits. "Above," he shouted, his energy staff activating instantly. Shadowclaw assassins dropped from the ceiling, their weapons charged with red energy. But they weren't ready for what they faced. James and the twins moved as one being, their purple energy creating a shield that protected the gathered nobles. Their unified fighting style had evolved into something neither human or Vex-Terry. It was something entirely new. "Watch," Zyra called to the stunned audience as they fought. "See how our cultures can blend, creating something stronger." The assassins couldn't penetrate their defense. James's Earth combat experience, combined with Vex-Terry energy techniques, made their attacks unpredictable and powerful. "This is what we can become," Kyra announced while deflecting a blast. "Not divided, but united. Stronger together." Suddenly, the great doors burst open. The twins' parents, the king and queen, strode in with their loyal guards. The sight of the rightful rulers turned the tide immediately. "Arrest the Shadowclaw supporters," the king commanded. "The evidence of their treachery is undeniable." As royal guards moved to secure the conspirators, the queen approached James and her daughters. Her purple eyes studied James intently. "So," she said softly, "this is the human who has captured both my daughters' hearts." James bowed respectfully, just as the twins had taught him. "Your Majesty, I—" She raised her hand, stopping him. "I see the bond between you three. It glows brighter than any I've ever witnessed." The king joined them, looking equally impressed. "The ancient prophecies spoke of a time when our peoples would be united by love that transcends worlds." "Prophecies?" James asked, looking at the twins in surprise. Zyra and Kyra smiled sheepishly. "We didn't want to pressure you," they said together. "The choice had to be genuine," Zyra explained. "Born of love, not duty," Kyra added. The king addressed the gathered court. "Today marks a new era. Our daughters and their chosen mate have shown us a path forward. Earth and Vex-Terry, united not by treaties or technology, but by bonds of family and love," the queen finished. The nobles who had opposed them now bowed their heads in acceptance. The prophecy fulfilled was something even they couldn't deny. James pulled the twins close, their hands intertwined. "So, what happens now?" "Now," Zyra said, her purple eyes glowing with joy, "we build something new. Together," Kyra added, squeezing his hand. As they stood before the court, their energy staffs humming in perfect harmony, James realized this wasn't just a victory for them. It was hope for both their worlds. The battle was won, but their greatest adventure, building a bridge between two civilizations while nurturing their unique bond, was just beginning. And as he looked at the beautiful alien women who had become his family, his partners, and his future, James knew he was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. 1 year had passed since the battle at the High Court. The grand ceremonial chamber of the Vexteri Palace glittered with thousands of crystals, their light creating dancing patterns on the walls. Today was no ordinary celebration. It was the official binding ceremony between the twin princesses and their human mate. James stood before the gathered audience of both humans and Vexteri, wearing the unique combination of Earth military dress and Vexteri royal garments. The silver and blue uniform had been specially designed to represent both worlds. "Who would have thought," he whispered to himself, "that a simple security contract would lead to this?" The chamber doors opened, and the twins entered. They took his breath away, as they always did. Zyra and Kira wore matching gowns that seemed to flow like liquid starlight, their silver hair adorned with crystal crowns that caught the light. "Our daughters have chosen," the queen announced to the gathered crowd, "and their choice has brought our worlds together in ways we never imagined." The Earth ambassador stepped forward, standing beside the Vexteri king. "This union represents more than just a marriage," she declared. "It shows that our differences can become our strengths." James smiled as the twins reached him. They had already been together for months, their bond growing stronger each day. This ceremony was just making it official for both their worlds. The prophecy spoke true, the king said, his voice carrying through the chamber. When hearts unite freely across the stars, barriers fall and peace flourishes. It was true. In the past year, Earth and Vexteri relations had improved dramatically. Their combined technologies had solved problems neither world could fix alone. Cultural exchanges had enriched both societies. The ancient binding ritual began. Purple energy swirled around the three of them as they activated their staffs one final time as separate individuals. "James Chin," Zyra spoke softly, her purple eyes glowing with love. "You came to us as a guardian. Became our family," Kara continued, taking his other hand. "Our partner. And now," they said together, "our mate for all time." Their staffs touched, and the purple energy merged into a single brilliant light. The crowd gasped as the light formed patterns never seen before, a perfect blend of Earth symbols and Vexteri script. "The binding is accepted," the queen announced joyfully. "By both our laws and customs, they are now one." The celebration that followed was unlike anything either world had seen. Humans and Vexteri danced together, shared meals, and exchanged stories. James danced with both his wives, their movements as perfectly synchronized as when they fought together. Later that night, in their private chambers, James held the twins close. "Happy?" Zyra asked, tracing his face with her gentle blue fingers. "More than I ever thought possible," he replied honestly. "And this is just the beginning," Kyra added, her head resting on his shoulder. They were right. Tomorrow they would begin their new roles as ambassadors between their worlds. Their unique bond made them perfect for building bridges between cultures. "You know," James said thoughtfully, "when I signed that security contract, I thought I was just taking a job." The twins laughed, the sound like musical chimes. "The universe had other plans," they said together. "Better plans," Zyra whispered. "Perfect plans," Kyra agreed. As they lay together, watching the alien stars through their chamber window, James knew they were right. What had started as a simple bodyguard assignment had become something miraculous, a love that transcended worlds, a family that bridged galaxies, and a future brighter than any star in the sky. Their story would be told for generations on both worlds, teaching others that love knows no boundaries, that family can be found in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the greatest adventures begin with a simple signature on a contract. The end.